Greetings, it's Andy here again, another quick video, and this is 10 albums that I listen to the most. So I picked this up from watching a video that Norman Maslow did a day or two ago, a couple of days ago I think I saw it. And he threw it out there as a challenge for other people to have a go, and I thought that's quite a good subject because it isn't saying these are my favourite 10 albums. It's the albums I tend to go to or I tend to listen to most. Not all the albums, some of them are my favourites, some of them are in my top 10 favourite albums, at least one anyway, and some of them are my favourite of the band, but not all of them. Some are, you know, third or fourth, but for some reason I listen to the album more often. Some of these I had originally on vinyl, but I subsequently actually listened to a CD or digital copy more, and I'll come to that when I go through and why. And some of them I started off with CD, and it's only more recently that I've picked up a vinyl version of it. So, and it's also, I might also add that it's not necessarily the bands that I listen to most. So, for example, a band that I do listen to a lot is Porcupine Tree, and they've got a lot of albums, and I've got a lot of them. But when I was thinking about it, there's not one individual album I tend to go to. There's a handful, so they don't necessarily. None of them appear in the top 10 albums that that I tend to listen to most. There's quite a lot of early 70s here because I think you do pick up, in your early teens. You set some standards which stay with you for life, and I've got a few of those here, but it's not all old stuff. There's more recent stuff, and actually when I come to it, the album which I've come to last amongst these is actually the oldest one, so I'll come to that in a minute. So let's get started, and my first one is Genesis Foxtrot from 1972. So this is my original. It's a first UK press on the famous Charisma label, and it has for cover album nerds, you can tell as well because it's got a textured sleeve, and also the artwork is contiguous across the spine, though mine's a bit sort of manked out now. And really, this is it's very much an album of two halves. The absolute standout is takes up most of side two, and is Supper's Ready, and that I can listen to. That I listen to probably at least once a month. Just that, but the whole album I listen to as well. I mean, some people tend to think that some of the tracks on side one are a bit, compared to Supper's Ready, aren't that good. I like the whole album. It's got some, it's got some great tracks on here. Get 'Em Out by Friday, Watcher of the Skies, Can Utility and the Coastliners starts off, but it's really Supper's Ready which gets it for me, and that just listening through that, it brings back so many memories as well. That there are points in there where it can bring me to tears, where I get goosebumps, and I have to sing along to it as well, and I can't sing. So Foxtrot, and that is one of my top 10 all-time albums, as well as my favourite Genesis album. So next is a much more recent one. It's one I've only recently got on vinyl, so I've been listening to it, since I came across it 20 odd years ago in digital formats, and it is Young Team by Mogwai, and it's their debut. It's got my favourite track of theirs, Mogwai Fear Satan, some plenty of others as well, so like Herod, Are You Still Into It, with done in text speak, and this is a double, and it's blue, and it's a fabulous pressing. So I only got this last year on vinyl, but I've been listening to it for donkey's years, and it's an album I absolutely adore. Back to my youth, so another one from 72, and that is Wishbone Ash, Argus, another one which is nudging my top 10. So again, this is an original first UK press, as far as I'm aware anyway. It's certainly an early one, with the got the old advertising sleeve on there. I don't keep it in that any longer, and it's on the MCA label. Great band, a classic of dual lead guitar, but more sort of folky, less rocky than some of the other twin leads. Steve Upton on drums, Martin Turner bass, and the twin guitars of Andy Powell and Ted Turner. Their best and earliest lineup. A real all filler, no killer. Time Was, Sometime Well, Blowing Free, The King Will Come, Leaf and Stream, Warrior, and Throw Down the Sword. Absolutely fabulous, and I listen to that again at least once a month. Another one, I think this might be 71, and I think this is an original. It's certainly, if not a first press, it's certainly, within a year. It's not a reissue, and that's Aqualung by Jethro, Tull. It's my favourite of theirs. I know it's a toss-up with Thick as a Brick, but I like this best. It's great artwork. This one is actually in quite good condition by my standards, and there's a reason for that which I won't bore you with now. It's for another day, and it's got all the lyrics on the sleeve in there. So you've got the title track, Aqualung, Cross-Eyed Mary, Cheap Day Return, Wandering Aloud, Mother Goose, My God, Hymn 43, Slip Seam, Locomotive Breath, Wind Up. Absolute killer. Perfect album. And it's on the original green Chrysalis label. Now, I don't listen to that one so often, actually. I've got another version of it, and I mentioned Porcupine Tree earlier, so this is how I sneak some Stephen Wilson into there, because this is the Stephen Wilson stereo remix version, which is really very good. It's a way better pressing than the original one. And Stephen Wilson, I've got, not only have I got shed loads of Porcupine Tree albums, and also quite a bit of Stephen Wilson's output, I've got an awful lot of his remasters and remixes that he's done, a lot to early prog stuff, but to plenty of others as well. He's a bit of a master of that trade. So Jethro Tull, Aqualung, moving along, a much more recent one now. And I'm and hard about this. Radiohead is a band I do listen to most, and I was trying to think which album do I listen to most. And I started off with Ben's, and then when I thought about it, actually it is their latest one, even though this was 2016, so it's not that late. And it's a Moon-Shaped Pull, and it's a fabulous album. It's one. It's not my favourite Radiohead album, but it's the album I like to sit down to and just listen all the way through. It's a whole album song. I struggle to think of the names of the tracks on there, though. Burn the Witch, Daydreaming, Dex, Glass Eyes, Tinker Tailor Soldier, Sailor Rich Man I Love. A great album. It is one of their, I mean, they haven't really done any Duff ones. But I really like this. This is probably my third or fourth favourite of theirs, but it is the one I tend to listen to most. Moving on now to another one of my original going back, and this one is in dreadful condition, and it is Pink Floyd's Meddle. Again, I was trying to I was umming and ahhing between which do I listen to most, Dark Side of the Moon or Wish You Were Here, which are probably my two favourite albums of theirs, with the animals going in there. And then I thought, no, actually, I listen to Meddle more. I listen to tracks of those, they stream on, because obviously I've got them on digital copies. But this has the fabulous long form echoes on there. So, like Supper's Ready with Genesis, I love echoes, the long echoes. I like that sort of long form. And this goes back, I had this in my bedroom in 1971 when I was 14, playing it on, dreadful equipment with headphones on. It's not in the best of condition. It's got real, the sleeve is really split. It is the original Harvest green label, but I've sort of always slightly wary of playing it, so this is one I listen to a lot, but I tend to listen to it on, well, not so much on the CD, but I've actually ripped the CD to FLAC, so I have a server, so I tend to stream it from my server and listen to it. Now, the oldest record, and the one I've most recently bought, and that is Isaac Hayes' Hot Buttered Soul. So I bought this a couple of years ago, a bit on a whim. It's a rough trade essential version, and it was in their sale. And I thought, that sounds quite interesting. So I love Shaft, and I thought, well, I'll get it because it was a good value, and it is superb. It's superb in many ways. It's the reason it's on here because it's been in my now playing crate. Ever since I bought it, so every now and then it gets pulled. I just come to it again and pull it out and listen to it, and it's an absolute. It's not officially an audiophile pressing, but it sounds like it. It's as perfect as you get, and it's in a sort of brown, marbly, semi-transparent, and it's only got 4 tracks on it. Again, 2 of them are long, and there's superb versions of By the Time I Get to Phoenix and Walk On By. And they've also got hyperbolic, I can't read it, hyperbolic syllabisquital lismitic, which is quite a funky track. That's quite good. And anyway, it's an absolutely perfect soul record, and it's one of those tracks I sometimes listen to in the evening and just let it wash over me, and just, I'll try and sing along to it again, despite the fact I can't sing. Great album. Now, one of my favourite female voice singers is Beth Gibbon, and this is one of my favourite albums from the 90s, and it's Portishead Dummy. Every track on here is brilliant. I mean, they're on the radio all the time, but I quite often pull this out. Again, it's one which obviously I got on CD initially, so this vinyl copy I got a few years ago, but I do listen to it occasionally, but I tend to listen to the CD version more. It's got lovely artwork in there. It's an absolute all killer. Mr. On, Sour Time, Strangers, It Could Be Sweet, Wandering Star, Numb, Rhodes, Pedestal, Biscuit, and closes off with the Magnificent Glory box. An absolutely superb album which warrants being in everyone's collection, in my humble. We come to another band which I've come to relatively late, one I sort of dismissed early on, and I'm talking here about Talk Talk and their final album, Laughing Stock. Talk Talk really started out in the sort of early 80s as what I would describe as a fairly average synth pop band, but doing radio friendly synth pop stuff, but very quickly evolved into something not that radio friendly, but very cutting edge. And their band leader Mark Hollis was an absolute genius. They were asked by they were part of the EMI group, and they were challenged by them to produce more commercial stuff, and they didn't. So effectively, they got sacked. And this is their last album they produced. They switched to Polydor. It was put together with a lot of improvisation by a big group of musicians, which was sort of pulled together slightly after the event, and has produced what is a magnificent album, and is considered to be a forerunner of the post-rock genre, even though it's not like post-rock as like Mogwai and bands like that. It's very, very different, but this is a superb album. It's one I pull out, and its predecessor, Spirit of Eden, and I pull it out really frequently. It's only got 3. It's a single album. It's got 6 tracks on it: Merman, Ascension Day, After the Flood, Taphead, New Grass and Rune 2. It was recorded in 90/91, released in 91. And it is a magnificent album. It's one of those ones. It's very difficult to describe. It's one, if you don't know it, you need to listen to it. I absolutely love it. As I say, it was only sort of a few years ago that I came across this late period Talk and was amazed I hadn't come across it before. So absolutely fabulous album, and is in my regular play. So that's Talk. And last but not least, one of my favourite bands, but it's one where I listen most to their live album, and it is Bebop Deluxe and Live in the Air Age. This came out in 1977, and I actually saw them on the tour. So not on the concert they recorded this at, but sort of, I don't know, a week or so beforehand, I think it was. It's a strange format album, in the sense it's got the LP, which came in some nice artwork, but two of the tracks are on a 7-inch. Now, I've often wondered why on earth they couldn't have just sort of done it. I mean, they've got enough music to have done a full double. So I don't know why they did this, but it's almost a best of. That's one of the reasons. So this came, as I say, it was 77. By then they had produced 4 of their first 4 albums, all of which were great, and particularly the last of those, Sunburst Finish. Before this came out, there was only one subsequent album to this, which is my least favourite of them. So this is really, to me, a sort of like a greatest hits. I like a live album, I like a greatest hits, which is why I come to this. And this is another one where because it's messy having to mess around with the single and so on. This is another one where I tend to listen to the CD. And this was a couple of years ago, 2021. They remastered it, remixed, reissued, and I got this on CD format. And it's got the whole of that original recording on one CD, with some bonus tracks from which they recorded, I think, with for John Peel on BBC Radio. But there's 2 further discs with a whole concert from Hammersmith Odeon. So when I say I don't know why they couldn't have done a full double, well, obviously they could have done, because they've now produced the concert, or one of the concerts from that tour, which cover the 2 CDs. So it's absolutely fabulous. It's one of my favourite live albums of all. But it's also sort of my favourite Bebop Deluxe album. So those are my 10. There were lots of others I could have gone for, but I was sort of thinking, well, yeah, these are the ones which I tend to pull out more than others, or I tend to listen to, whether I'm streaming it or using CD or using vinyl. It's a whole mix of those, because I'm not wedded just to one format. So I hope that was all right. It was quite a good challenge out there to pick the albums which you listen to most versus your favourite ones. So thanks for watching. Cheers.